Alrighty, so it's not often that I do review of the Sunday game right after when it finished, but since the last Sunday game for this match week finished around 7 o'clock and still early enough for me to do the review before I call it a night and have to go to work very early once again tomorrow, I decided to might as well just do it now. And not to mention, tomorrow I will do the preview in terms of the midweek games, and yes, midweek games are back in MLS. We do have a big chunk of midweek games that's going to be happening. In fact, 9 that's going to be happening between Wednesday and Thursday. And then the schedule kind of gets a little bit weird because next week is the 4th of July weekend, and we'll talk more about that when we do the preview of those games, most likely on Friday. Now, let's us actually get into the first game of today, which is LAFC versus the New York Red Bulls. And this was a very LAFC kind of game where, you know, this season for LAFC, we know that this is a team that is a second half team and that they kind of came out of the gate slow, but eventually they growed into the game and they basically finished it off in the second half, and that is exactly what they did in this game against the New York Red Bulls, scoring 2 quick goals in the second half to win 2-0 in this one. Now, early on, Morgan did blast one into the stands, and by the way, one thing I didn't mention in this game, besides the fact that Kylian Mbappe was actually attending this one, and it seems like MLS made a big deal of it, even though, yeah, there's no chance that Mbappe is going to come to MLS. Maybe 10 or 15 years down the line. Well, actually not 15. I would say maybe like 5 or 10 years down the line. But one thing that was also interesting in this game is that there was no VAR in this one. So this was kind of an old-fashioned kind of MLS game. Well, I wouldn't say old-fashioned because, you know, VAR was only introduced a couple of years ago, but it kind of feels old-fashioned, the fact that we're watching an MLS game with no VAR because they had some technical difficulty with it. So, yeah, you know, we were kind of praying that there was no controversial call, because if there was a controversial call, they can't go to VAR to look at it like it always is the case. But as I mentioned, Morgan blasts one into the stands early in this game before Amaya puts a one-hopper straight to Crépeau. It was once again a slow start for LAFC, which I'm pretty sure they're pretty much accustomed to this, because that's been kind of the case in most of the game that they've been playing this season. And I thought the Red Bulls have some half chances in this first 15 minutes, but not really much that kind of caused trouble for Crépeau. And I think LAFC would take it because, you know, when you're off to a slow start, you do not want to just give your opposition many chances and maybe get an early lead in the game. Now, Cornell did deny an Escobar, as that was LAFC's first big chance in the 21st minute. And then Cifuentes fires it wide from long range. And, you know, we talk about LAFC. Even though they get off to a slow start, they can eventually grow into it. And it feels like they're already growing into this game. Blessing blasted high from 10 yards down the 34th minute before Barlow hits one wide from long range on the other end. Elie then hits it wide from close range in the 40th minute. And despite some good chances right near the end of the half, we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Castres puts it just wide from long range in the 46th minute before Mihailo Opoku hits it straight to Cornell. Then Cornell denied Opoku from the near post, and all of a sudden the pressure started to kind of mounting from LAFC. And you just, again, you know, this is what they do. They start to create some pressure in the second half, and next thing you know, they would eventually break away this 0-0 draw and get the opening goal of this game. In fact, they kind of mentioned on the feed that, you know, LAFC have scored 20 goals in the second half, which not only leads MLS, but I don't think that's even close. Like, that is a lot of goals that LAFC have scored in the second half, and that total will now be added to 22 goals scored in the second half after this game. Because after Blessing blasted high from close range, LAFC finally took the lead, and it's Chicho Arango scoring from Vela to give LAFC a 1-0 lead. Now, there was a hint whether or not if Arango was in an offside position, because the fact that Arango just went through on goal with no Red Bulls player around him, and then eventually tucks it home, most of the time you're thinking, well, the flag is going to come up. But it never did, and on the replay, it was pretty clear that Arango was onside. I don't know which Red Bulls player that kept him onside, but yeah, I mean, Arango just stayed onside here to time his run perfectly. And if you're the Red Bulls, I mean, yeah, that was, I mean, I guess they was trying to put an offside trap, but they did not do a good job whatsoever. But even then, you simply can't just stop like that. Like the fact that they just kind of stop there and let Arango go through and go, I mean, that's not going to help out your cause. I mean, even if the flag would eventually comes up, you want to keep playing, and that was kind of one of the situation where they simply stopped, thinking that the goal was going to be disallowed because of the flag, or because of well, not because of the flag, but because of well, yeah, because of the flag, because there's no VAR in this one. And honestly, I was also, that was kind of one that I was worried maybe this is going to be a talking point, because if that was indeed offside, they couldn't go to VAR to check on it, but it wasn't. It was the right call in the end. Then 3 minutes later, Palacio would score from Rodriguez to make it 2-0 in favor of LAFC. I mean, the Red Bulls just they just kind of unbuckle in terms of the pressure, and this is the classic LAFC kind of blitz that they have in the second half, where once they get a goal in the second half, you expect them to get one very quickly soon. Crepeau then denied Morgan from close range before Klemala flash run wide in the 75th minute. Great to the Red Bulls. They weren't giving up and looked to get one back. In fact, these last couple of minutes, they kind of had the best chance of the afternoon, because for the most part, some of these half chances that their attacker has had weren't really grade A chances, and that that was really, these last couple of chances was really one of the first one where they really make Maxime Crepeau work. Holland's did had a low drive shot that goes wide before Zach Ryan struck the post on the volley, and he didn't actually hit that one hard, but somehow it just hit the post on the left side. And yeah, if that one went in, it would have definitely set up a very interesting last 3 minutes in this one. But ultimately, LAFC does get a 2-0 win over the Red Bulls, as the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 12 that LAFC had, 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Red Bulls had, 5 shots off target compared to 8 that the Red Bulls had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that the Red Bulls has in this game. And again, this was pretty classic LAFC win for them, and kind of just sums up this season, that the reason why they're so good this year and are at the top of the supporters show standing is that they know how to finish game in the second half. And usually with second half team, one of the concern you would have is that if you give up early goal, you're going to really have to chase game. Well, that's another thing that LAFC have done so good this season. They haven't been falling behind that much in terms of playing poorly in the first half, and as long as you do that and you are a second half team and able to score those goals in the second half, you're going to get wins most of the time. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the rematch of the Eastern Conference Final between the Philadelphia Union and NYCFC, and this was probably the most CONCACAF game I've seen in MLS. I mean, I've mentioned many times, when you look at a CONCACAF game, and what kind of defines a CONCACAF game, you're going to see something that you usually only see in the CONCACAF Champions League, or either in the World Cup qualifier, where there's some of the most wackiest thing you ever see in a game. And we definitely saw some wacky game, but we also saw a lot of different levels of how a soccer game is played. We saw a game where it's fast and furious, we saw a cagey part of the game, and then we saw a hectic last 15 minutes of the game, where it was also a game like I think they even mentioned it. I think it was who mentioned it. It might have been either Mo Adu or JP Del Carmen mentioned, this is the game that never ends, because this game went all the way to triple digit in terms of minutes before finally ending in a very interesting way, and probably the most CONCACAF way possible. But early on in the first half, just 8 minutes in, the Union take the lead, and it's Michael Root that gets the opening goal for the Union. But yeah, that was not great goalkeeping for Sean Johnson. And I know Sean Johnson has getting a lot of hype, especially with the way that he's been performing with NYCFC, but that was one that is not going to help his cause in terms of backing up that hype, because I think he kind of dived a little bit too early, and Root just kind of put a simple tap into that, and yeah, just like that, the Union were leading 1-0. Kind of a very odd goal to see them score there, but even an odder goal to see NYCFC conceding there, and certainly one that for Sean Johnson, he probably would want to have that one back. And also just another example that great goalkeeper make mistake in a game. Now, despite that bad mistake, I thought Sean Johnson played very well. In fact, in the first half, he was kind of the reason why this one stayed 1-0 for a very long time. And, I also kind of wrote the Union, they got the first goal, which is good, but here's the problem. We've seen this story before, and that, the problem for them this season with them drawing so many games is because they can't find that second goal. They can't find that killer goal. They let the opposition tie the game, and next thing you know, it's another draw for them. Now, there was a shout for a penalty from NYCFC that was not given. The Union, I thought they were pressing a lot early in this game, kind of a very typical Jim Curtin style of play where he wants his team press, and it was very effective too. I mean, NYCFC was just not able to get out of their own half. Most of the ball was in the Union half. And in the 16th minute, Johnson would rob Uru from point blank range. So that was a much better effort there from Sean Johnson, and more like the Sean Johnson that we know of. But that's one that Uru would definitely think that he should have scored that one. I mean, I think that one is probably one that he probably should have scored rather than the one that he scored in the 8th minute. But on the ensuing corner, Johnson would then deny Elliott, who had a free header. I mean, he had a free header, but he didn't really kind of hit it very well. Gastat then had a shot that was deflected wide. The shots were 4-0 in favor of the Union early in the game. I mean, NYCFC just had nothing going for it on the attack, but I mean, it kind of helps the fact that most of the ball is played it kind of doesn't help when most of the play is in their own half. Johnson then denied Gastak from close range in the 30th minute, and I wrote after the howler, Johnson seems like he's back on top of his game. I mean, he's just been standing on his head, trying to keep this at 1-0 as long as possible. And I also thought that the NYCFC defense, which usually is very solid, they were getting ripped apart. And of course, a lot of that has to do with, they just cannot get out of their own half. They keep turning the ball over in their own half, and when you keep turning the ball over in your own half, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. Your defense is just going to be completely out of shape, and that the Union was taking a full advantage of that. Though NYCFC did have their first shot in the 32nd minute as Rodriguez blasted that one into the stands. Before Blake did deny Gloucester, and I thought NYCFC kind of started to get a foothold of the game, and they definitely weathered the storm between that first goal that they conceded all the way up to around the 30th minute. And we do head to halftime with the Union leading 1-0 against NYCFC. So we go to the second half, and in the second half, I thought it was much more cagey to start the second half, though, this is when NYCFC started to kind of play the brand of soccer that they like, which is possession soccer, and that the Union was kind of started to drop in a deep shape, which is kind of not what I think their fans want to see, and kind of something that Jim Curtin didn't want to do, because, we've seen before where the Union, the one thing that they want to do is that, they need to continue the pressure and trying to get the second goal, but dropping deep and letting NYCFC dictating play is usually not going to end well. Though that being said, besides Tinnerholm blast one into the stands in the 68th minute, I thought NYCFC attack looked stale. Like, they just moved the ball way too slow, and part of that has to credit the Union being very defensive structure, and I mentioned they're one of the best defensive team in the league, but also you got to say that a combination of that and NYCFC, they just look slow on the attack, so many poor deliveries, so many hopeless ball into the box that is easily cleared away by those tall Union defense. But then in the 76th minute, this is when things really started to hit peak MLS level, as there was some tempers flare that happened, and there was a lot of pushing and shoving between both of these teams. I mean, they mentioned a couple of times that this, of course, is a rivalry game, and in some way, I think it's kind of started to get to that point. I mean, both of these cities are only like 90 miles apart, so you're going to have that regional rivalry, even though I think before the Eastern Conference Final, there wasn't really kind of that rivalry standpoint between NYCFC and the Union, but I think it's now created that because of the playoff series that we had last year, and the fact that both of these teams are not very far from each other, and you definitely saw that both teams were definitely pushing and shoving. But what's kind of interesting that started this whole sequence was that one of the medical trainer, who later was identified as Paul Rushing, he basically had some choice words with Castellanos. Now, I think that apparently the reason why he was mad at Tati Castellanos is that he was going to treat one of the Union player that was down, and Castellanos decided not to let him him do so, which is kind of odd because you're down 1-0. Why are you just kind of not let the medical staff basically do their job? But then what got even more crazy, and this is where it went peak MLS level and maybe even peak CONCACAF level, is that same medical trainer Paul Rushing, he got sent off. And apparently, I think he got sent off wasn't because of him having choice words with Castellanos, but he kind of had some choice words and he kind of put his hands on Morales. Now, I don't know what's the rule in MLS in terms of non players personnel putting hands on opposition, but I think after tonight we may have a good idea that if you're just a medical trainer, you cannot put hands on opposition, because he immediately got a red card because of that. And yeah, I mean, that was just such a bizarre situation, and that I think that is probably one of the most bizarre situation I've seen in a game, probably since, remember how Mateus Almeida, and he had his translator, and there was like one game his translator got sent off, and I don't know exactly why it caused his translator to be sent off and not Almeida. Well, his was even more weirder with the way that, again, I don't think we ever seen this happen where one of the medical trainer can get a red card. And I wonder what's going to be the punishment now that MLS will give to that medical trainer Paul Rushing. I mean, are they going to suspend him the next game? Does that mean they have like a replacement medical trainer? I mean, it's just such a bizarre kind of situation. I mean, I'm assuming he's probably going to be suspended in the next game, because if you get a red card, like, I know how coaches usually sometimes get a red card too, and they've been sent to the stands and they get suspended in the next game. So does that mean the medical trainer gets suspended in the next game, and who's going to be the replacement for him? I mean, do they even have a replacement? Yeah, it's just kind of very, very bizarre, but also kind of interesting, but also kind of sarcastic too, because I think if you know one thing about Philadelphia sports is that they, even though they can be a little bit rough at times, they can be very sarcastic too. And the whole stadium kind of sarcastically erupted when the PA announcer that medical trainer Paul Rushing got sent off, because again, it was odd that of course is the case, and that's probably something that they're going to be telling the story down the line, and probably something that they'll never see again in their lifetime. But yeah, that pretty much just kind of kick off what would be just kind of a crazy last 15 minutes, because after Magno strike one right to Blake, a penalty was given to NYCFC after Wagner handball into the box. Now, what's weird about this is that the referee, he kind of didn't point to the spot immediately, and I'm not sure, did he maybe get some persuasion from one of the NYCFC player, which I think it was either Maxi Morales or Tati Castellanos. But after that, he basically just said penalty. Now, I think maybe he kind of hesitated. Maybe he was just kind of listening to his earpiece, and maybe VAR was checking whether or not if it's a handball. And while that was happening, your typical ref you suck chant rang down. I mean, that's a very typical Philadelphia kind of chant that we've seen before every time. Well, it's not just that, but every time when bad things go your team, that's a very typical chant that you usually hear. But I mean, it was kind of bizarre to see that the referee give a penalty after just a couple of minutes. And again, I'm not sure, did he maybe use his earpiece to listen to VAR to see whether or not that VAR is checking and whether or not it gets a penalty. But either way, that was a penalty that was given, and when you also look on the replay, it's the right call. I mean, Wagner clearly put his hand in an outstretched position. The penalty was given to NYCFC, which Castellanos was able to put that one away to tie the game up at one apiece. And again, for the Union, it feels like it's here we go again. We've seen this story so many times. Them getting that opening goal, they just cannot quite finish off the game, and it seems like they're bound for another draw on this one. But there was another shout for a penalty for NYCFC that was not given. And then in the 7 minute of stoppage time, the Union would retake the lead. It's Corey Burke scored from Martinez to give the Union a 2-1 lead. Now, originally, they said that the goal was disallowed for offside. But then, when you look on the replay, when they go to VAR, they rightfully overruled that disallowed goal call, because you can clearly see that when Burke basically redirect that one, he was not in an offside position. And as long as if you're a player that redirect a shot, or you're in the vicinity of the shot, and you're not in an offside position, it's still fair game. I mean, it's something that I think in the end they got it right. But yeah, I mean, this gives the Union the lead back. And just as you thought that the game was over, then you're so wrong. I mean, as I said, JP Del Camera, he mentioned this was the game that never ends, because then in the ninth minute of stoppage time, Corey Burke had a chance to put this game on ice, but John Johnson was able to deny him there. And then on the other end, there was actually a check for a potential handball on Hario, in the box, and that, yeah, I mean they actually, well, the referee didn't go to VAR to check, but he kind of listened to his earpiece and just kind of communicate with the VAR official whether or not if that is a handball. I mean, imagine if that actually was given a handball. Like, this game was already nuts before, but to add that to it, I mean, I think we reached past peak MLS kind of level, and maybe reach to the ultra level of CONCACAF and MLS kind of shit housery. But in the end, they said it was not a penalty, and not only they said it was no penalty, the referee blew for the final whistle right after when he said no penalty. I mean, that is probably the most peak MLS and most CONCACAF way to kind of blow for the final whistle. And also, going back to that handball itself, I mean, it was close. Like, it was very close. I mean, you can maybe see Hario kind of handball that one into the box, but there's the question whether or not if his arm is kind of tucked in or not. And as I said, handballs are some of the most inconsistent call in this league, and that I don't blame some NYCFC fans will be angry about this, because there's times where I've seen that one being called of a penalty and being overruled, and then there's times like that where it's not given. So yeah, it's kind of one of those gray area, but I think at the end of the day, you can clearly see these referee crew were just done with this game. So yeah, like I said, they blow the final whistle right after when the penalty was not given to NYCFC. And yeah, in the end, after just a marathon of a game, the Union were able to win 2-1 against NYCFC. And the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 10 that NYCFC had. 6 shots on goal compared to 5 that NYCFC had. Both teams had 3 shots off target. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 44% possession compared to 59% possession that NYCFC, or 41% possession compared to 59% possession that NYCFC had in this game. Honestly, I can't wait for the rematch of this game. Like, I can't wait to see how the rematch is going to be, because if we're going to get something similar in the rematch of this game, sign me up for this to be a playoff series. I want to see another playoff series between these two very good teams in the Eastern Conference, and also these top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference right now. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board, which is the Vancouver Whitecaps and New England, and also the last game of match week number 16. And the last game of match week number 16 didn't live up to the craziness that we saw in this one. I mean, it's going to be very tough to live up to the craziness in this game. But what we did saw in this game was kind of a classic game where, both teams had a lot of chances, could have had a chance to get the opening goal, but unfortunately, both teams weren't able to find their finishing touch in this one, and the game ends scoreless between the Whitecaps and the Refs. Now, early on, I thought the Whitecaps were on the front foot early, and they were looking to try to get an early goal, just like they did against FC Dallas. Heel did blast one into the stands in the 7th minute. There was only one apiece through 15 minutes of this game. By the way, this game was kind of overlapping the first 20 minutes of this game, so I didn't really write a lot of notes and kind of pay too much attention to this one, because there was just so much crazy thing that happened in this one that I was almost solely focused on this one while I have this game in the background. But the shots were only one apiece through 15 minutes, which kind of helped the fact that, yeah, it was kind of uneventful. Because imagine if both of these games were uneventful. Man, I'm going to have a hands full in terms of trying to keep up both of these one. But in the 17th minute, we did have an unfortunate situation where Caicedo had to be subbed off with a knee injury, and Dahome came in to replace him, and it didn't look good when you saw how Caicedo went off, and that they mentioned that it was a left knee injury, but something tells me that it could be the A word that we might be using on Monday. And again, for Whitecaps fan, they hope that is not going to be the case, because David Caicedo has been very very big for this Whitecaps team on the attack and especially on the wing. Now, Heel did hits it high on the free kick before Dahomey fired one right to Petrovic. I mean, Dahomey, I thought he did well coming in for Caicedo. It's hard to believe that Dahomey hasn't well, he has been getting minutes, but he hasn't been playing in the natural position, and that seems like now that he gets a chance to play back in his natural position, and it's no surprise that he had a decent game filling in for Caicedo. Raposo then puts it wide from long range, and we head to halftime scoreless between the Revs and the Whitecaps. Now, in the second half, more chances for both of these teams. Owusu will curl one right to Petrovic. I mean, I have no idea how Petrovic was able to catch that. Like, that was a stunning curler from Leo Owusu, but somehow Petrovic was able to get to that. And then on the other end, Barrero had a curler that struck the post in the 53rd minute, the closest that either of these teams came to scoring. And, you know, not only the fact that both teams was getting grade A chances, there would be more chances coming in for both teams. Cropper would then deny Barrero in the near post. I thought Cody Cropper had a decent game alongside with Petrovic. I thought both goalkeeper was on their game in this one. And, you know, not to mention for Cody Cropper, I think this is extra special because he is facing against his former team. But then Farrell puts one over the bar from the corner before on the other end, Petrovic denied Dahomey in the front post. Galdino then lashed one right to Petrovic in the 60th minute. It just felt like this is anyone's game. Like, both of these teams were going on the attack. They were going for it to get the opening goal, and that would continue for the rest of the game because Cavallini then fired one wide from long range before Tybert hits one just over the bar. Goal then drive the wide on the free kick before Bo puts it high from close range. Petrovic then denied White from 17 yards out before Hewitt denied Cavallini in the 85th minute. And you kind of sense maybe the Whitecaps are gaining some momentum, was pushing for the winner. And the next thing you know, the Revs decided to also push for the winner too, because Carlos Gil had an opportunity from close range to curl it in. And knowing the Spanish magician, you know, you wouldn't ban him missing that opportunity, but you know, he did puts that one just a little bit wide. And then Bo had an opportunity from 12 yards out, but he also puts that one wide. And yeah, you know, in a game where it was pretty back and forth in terms of chances and both teams getting opportunity, neither team were able to find their clinical finishing, and in the end it ends in a scoreless draw. And the shots kind of tells you the story that it was a very even game and both teams had opportunity, because the shots end up to be 16 apiece for both of these teams. 6 shots on goal compared to 2 that New England has, 10 shots off target compared to 5 that Vancouver has, 4 shots out of block compared to 5 that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession the Whitecaps has in this game. And, you know, overall, I think a draw is fair with the way that, you know, it was a very even kind of game, but overall, you know, both teams will be frustrated that they didn't get a goal with the way that they had the opportunity to do so, and especially for the Whitecaps too. You know, anytime dropping points at home where they have been very good is not ideal. And for the Revs, you know, even though they didn't score a goal here, I think they'll be happy walk away at a place that has been kind of a graveyard for a lot of teams to trying to get points this season on the road. But either way, that is pretty much it for the review of all 3 of these games. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 3 of these games, especially the one between the Union and NYCFC, which is pretty much the big talking point out of all 3 of these games. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.